toxic, you have like 5 grains, and you can actually go down to 1 or 0.
That will never change.
It does change.
The contraction furrows,
But I don't know what they're
stress
called,
rings.
but the circles.
Those you're born with.
I started with that.
Those are a
But they
pattern.
change. They change.
It depends if the camera was taken in the exact light.
Well, it's
or
not a camera. It wasn't a camera at all. It's
a microscope. I'm just telling you, I'm trained at the highest level. There's I've been doing this 20 years. What changes, which is why I got interested in the scleras, is whatever's your biggest, thickest, brightest red blood vessel is your most congested area in present time. So in the iris, it definitely shows you accumulations and things getting worse, but it won't show you, it won't go backwards on that. That's why you take pictures of the eyes is more significant than a thumbprint for people. So how could that change? But whatever is the thickest, brightest red line is what in the sclera shows you the most area of stress and congestion in the body. And in this case, this is going up into the brain area. But when it makes a 90-degree turn like this, that's actually a heart warning sign for a potential, in this case because it's on the left side, a potential stroke. If this was on the right side, it would be a potential heart attack. And this brown area here has to do with melanin pigment that represents liver hardening due to a bacterial infection. The blue that you see here around the iris, that's lacking of oxygen, most likely related to venous congestion, possibly anemia. When you see this honeycomb pattern happening, that has to do with a blood supply developing to support abnormal tissue growth. So many people I'm seeing have that sign in their eyes, and medical technology could not detect a situation like that until it was at least 70% developed. So you can see things as they're developing. Scleras are present time. And if you make improvements, using food as medicine is what I do to fade these lines, you will see them fade in potentially weeks. So it's a good way to check up on your
what is the jagged line on that one? What
this
is
one?
that? Yeah, no. This one. The zigzag. I should
so
have
this
said
one actually is a, when it does this box, that's a liver hardening sign representing like a cirrhosis situation. If that was in the uterus, it would be representing fibrosis. When it makes a box, the jaggedness that you're talking about, that refers to all these blood vessels have nothing to do with supplying blood to the eye, and they're in the sclera, but they come from behind the eye, and when they start approaching the iris, which is as far as they can go, that means it's an advanced situation. Since it can only go that far, if it continues to get congested, it will start bunching up on itself like that. And that's what's happening, like a rubber band. It just has nowhere else to go. So,
yeah, so it just...
But then in this case, these are actually lines connecting to other systems. It's not even just one single line, you know, representing that one area of the body. This is actually a certain configuration that represents substance abuse, a chronic substance abuse issue. It could be alcohol related or drugs or, you know, something like that in this person's life. And then this blue haze over here, that's like what you're seeing is behind the sclera. It's blue in the choroid layer. And that is a metabolic issue with a systemic metabolic problem where cells are not properly removing waste or of taking nutrients, so they're kind of stagnating with the waste removal, like how each cell, you know, it's kind of like a microorganism. They each intake nutrients and excrete waste. In this situation, on a systemic level, that's not happening the way it should be happening. Also, I have another one where this one represents the brain area. And when you see these gray dots here, that has to do with bacteria feeding off of fermented sugar, which means the pancreas is not properly metabolizing sugar. And this is in the brain area, so that means the brain is not getting enough glucose, which the brain runs almost exclusively on glucose. And here's also that honeycomb pattern again, if you heard that, where a blood supply is developing to support abnormal tissue growth, in this case in the brain. This is a more serious sign when you have a squiggle in between two parallel lines. That's showing a more advanced case of plaque buildup in the arteries and fatty, like a combination of fats and plaque hardening. And here's another one that is actually more advanced. So the more it squiggles, like you were asking, that's the more advanced. So this could potentially be a potential stroke situation. This is happening in the brain where these arteries are very clogged up with plaques and fats. And if the pupil at the same time happened to be an oblique shape, which represents central nervous system tissue, that would really be an imminent situation occurring. But also, there's the blue haze here again, representing insufficient oxygen in the brain. So this is the brain. A lot of people don't realize, what's going on behind the eye. And then also, here is the lower part. This is where the intestines are down here. A lot of things start in the intestines. The congestion travels. In this case, this is the kidneys and the prostate. And a lot of people have kidney congestion areas too. So it often starts in the bowels, but the kidneys are like right there with them. So there's a lot. So as you fix these problems, and I use food as medicine and herbs, I'm a master herbalist, these lines should fade. And that's how you know you're doing the right thing. Or if you're taking supplements, like let's say you are taking for prostate, and uterus would be here if this was the female, these lines should be fading, or else what you're doing isn't working. And then this is actually you can see if drugs are the cause of it. Prescription drugs could be, there's 5 ways they appear in the sclera. First as irritation, second as partial function loss of the organ, then as the sign advances it could be significant loss of the organ, then tissue destruction, and then ultimately even abnormal tissue growth caused by drugs or prescription medicines. So you can see that happening in your eye. There's also 10 parasite markings and 9 abnormal tissue growth signs. So you can be well in advance of anything occurring, and then you can go get it checked out, get it confirmed. I could at least point you in the right direction, instead of just, a lot of people are saying that their doctors can't figure out what's wrong with them. When I take the pictures, I take about 35 pictures, and we can see, with all 35 appearing at once, where's your biggest, thickest, brightest red line. That's where your problem, that you should concentrate on is. And then it's a 2-part appointment. The first part I take the pictures. It takes about an hour. I'm currently charging $65 for that. And then you come back in about 2 weeks. I give you some homework to do with food, because a lot of this is food related. Then I give you your results and your analysis, and that's about an hour, another $65, and then plus $25 for the written report. And I'm also beginning to travel where some people have been approaching today from like other states like Arizona or Michigan and if you had a significant group and you didn't live in the area, I'm also willing to travel just to take the pictures, and then I could do the analysis at home. And I'm saying this because we're videotaping, but I'm able to show you online where your problems are if you didn't live in the area. Cool. So again, my name is Susan Keiffer. I am wildflower herbal counseling and holistic iridology is my business, but also sclerology. A lot of people think of just iridology as the iris. Scleras are, again, present time. That's where you can get a lot more accurate, up-to-date information. And you can reach me at Susan Keiffer. Well, I guess this will be on my website. So any questions? I've also written this book on the food supply, 33 chapters on what happened to the food supply. If you're not familiar with the changes that have occurred in the history of how food used to be, wholesome, it's changed significantly. This also teaches using food as medicine. And then in the back, I have 200 recipes for people who say, well, then what can I eat? And they're actually very delicious, and they make you feel better. A lot of times you eat something and you, especially at restaurants, you always feel worse, like 100% of the time, right? 100%. So these are ways to use food as medicine that are delicious, that will heal you. And then I'm also the author of this book with my son, who is an Eagle Scout, on wild edibles for survival and first aid. There's over 100 plants in here, using food as medicine again, and also for survival. And I do a wild edible walk if you're in the area mostly. But this has pictures on where the plants are located natively, where they're grown. There's a little map of the country and a lot of history in here and how the Native Americans were using the different plants, like just basic ones like what's right behind me. I can
Spanish needle.
The beggar's tick or Spanish needles, the most important in the world. That's my favorite plant right there because it's powerfully antibiotic. The whole thing is edible. It's twice as nutritious as spinach, and you can use it for as an anti-inflammatory. You can use it to stop bleeding, if you had a cut, for mosquito repellent, as an antidote for snake venom, for malaria, for candida, for diabetes, for cancer, for herpes, for fevers, for sore throats. So I always tell people, if you remember nothing else, remember that plant. I'm going to just go grab it for those who aren't here. But this is also the third most important pollinator plant in Florida. And the bees don't have a lot to go on. If you look around and you're driving around and you see people's yards, there's not a lot of flowers for pollinating. This is the third most important pollinator plant. So I just chop off some and put it in the blender. Even the flowers are edible. I feed this to my rabbit all the time too. It's way easier than trying to grow spinach. So I tell people just keep a patch in your yard, because if we ever lost power, this is going to be your food supply and your medicine cabinet at the same time. And if you're interested in a walk, you can sign up. I'll probably be doing one more this month. So as I said, I'm a master herbalist, and I'm heavily involved in Boy Scouts. And a lot of this knowledge came from all our campouts. But this book is $29.95 if anyone is interested. And you won't find anything like it because I have all of the wild edible books, and I kind of wrote that with just regular stuff in your yard, not just the same 10 main plants. And then this one, I sell this for $45 because this is 20 years of research, and also I went around the country and heard much education and lectures with people who are not even alive anymore. There were some great men and teachers in the early 1900s leading the way on showing the food supply was changing back then. And today, we're in the result where a lot of things are expected to triple just in this decade. So I work on reversing that, educating people on food, because that's what is often the cause of all of these markers in the eyes. So